Hi, my name is Mark Scates, and I'm going over my lesson plan, sections 1 through 3 for oral communications, 11th grade. To start off with, I will go over section 1, which are the learning objectives. And to start the learning objectives, I will talk about the standards that will be used. And the first is the ELA standard, which is to work with peers to promote civil, democratic discussions and decision making, as well as to set clear goals and deadlines and establish individual roles as needed. The second standard will be the oral communication standard, which is to demonstrate mutual respect in interpersonal communication in the areas of assertive, aggressive, conflict resolution strategies, passive, and passive-aggressive. The objectives for the student learning for this lesson will be that the learner will distinguish between aggressive and passive communication and indicate the appropriateness of each in a civil discussion. Also, the learner will utilize conflict resolution strategies when disagreements arise. The reason I've chosen these objectives is that effective oral communication is vitally important in all areas of life. It's most important that an individual will be able to communicate on an interpersonal level, both in secondary education and in the workforce. And students that learn to communicate well with their peers and their instructors, their colleagues, as well as the general public, will be more successful. Let's go on to section 2, which is the student grouping. And I will group students for this instruction in 2 different ways. One will be small groups that are intentionally high-low set groups, and then also will be independent instruction. The reason I chose this instruction is that the high-low grouping during the role play will allow the lower students to gain confidence by observing the higher students before participating themselves. Also, moving on to the independent practice allows for independent thoughts and brainstorming about what they've seen, and this will also allow for me to check for the individual understanding of the student. So, going on to section 3, which is the methods section. The methods that I will use for this lesson are modeling. There'll be some lecture with discussion. There'll be the small group activity. Then we will come back together with a concluding discussion, and then there'll be the independent work. Why have I chose these methods? The reason that I chose these methods, I will go over one by one. And the modeling will act as an attention getter, and it will also be a good segue into the lecture and discussion, which will be brief, but it will be necessary in explaining the communication models and what we will be doing in our activity. And then the small group activity will be utilized so the students in the group can contribute to the learning of others by listening, taking turns, and actively participating. The formative assessments will occur at this time, the small group, as I walk around the classroom. Then the coming together with the concluding discussions will allow for students to finalize their thoughts and clarify any misconceptions they may have had about the topics that we have gone over. It'll also allow for me to conclude my formal assessment by asking some higher level thinking questions at this time. And then the independent work allows students to reflect upon what occurred in the small groups, and they can brainstorm any resolutions to conflicts. This also provides for me a source of this summative evaluation. So that is my lesson plan for oral communications 11th grade, sections 1 through 3.